Hi Booktube, it's 9 p.m. I've made a fresh cup of tea and I'm here with a little bit of a book haul for you. So this afternoon I went to Black Squirrel Books over on Bank Street here in Ottawa, and I took with me a small box of books that I wanted to sell to them for store credit, and they took all of the books, which was a first. So I guess I finally figured out, exactly what they want over there. This was my third time trading in books with them. And the past couple of times there were always, 2 or 3 that they didn't want because it wasn't what they try to sell. And, I understand that it does take a while when you go to a used bookstore to get the flavor and get an idea of what they are and aren't going to take. So I took my books and they took them all, which is great because that means I didn't have to carry any back home. And they gave me $50 in store credit. Now, when they put the credit onto my account, I discovered that I still had $12 on there from a past trade-in, which was a surprise to me because I thought that, last time I had spent that money, but it worked out well for me because I brought $49 in books home with me, and I left $13 on store credit there for my next trip, which is great because I thought I was all out of store credit and I thought I was going to have to pay a bit out of pocket for these, but they came to $49 and I got 5 books in total. Now, I know that's going to sound like a little bit to many people watching this, but keep in mind, 1, that's in Canadian dollars, and 2, I went for the good stuff. I went for the old, beautiful books that I really want to have on my shelf, and I am willing to pay, a little bit for the beautiful books, and I expect to pay, around $10 per book when I'm going for something of quality. So yeah, let me get started here with what I found. Set my tea aside there, and let's start with The Wings of the Dove by Henry James in the Modern Library edition. So this dust jacket is in beautiful condition, especially from the front. We've got a little bit of wear on the side here, but it's also in beautiful condition from the back. This was $12.99, and I have to say it's a little bit rare to find the old Modern Library editions with the dust jacket in this condition, especially when they're not enclosed in plastic. So I paid $12.99 for this one. I've actually never read Henry James, but I've heard that this one is quite good. I'm just looking in here to see if I can find the publication date for you. So this appears to be a 1937 publication. I mean, at the very least, that's what it says in here, but it's hard to say with some of these modern libraries whether that's the latest copyright date or whether that's really when it was published. But needless to say, I would guess this is from, the 1940s, 1950s, possibly the 1960s, and it's really in great condition here. So the dust jacket says, The Wings of the Dove by Henry James. The nationwide revival of interest in the writings of Henry James has created the demand for this new, popular priced edition of The Wings of the Dove, considered by its author the most ambitious, by his critics the most perceptive of his ever-growing circle of devotees, his most highly sustained novel. It is given a distinguished place in the Modern Library series, beside 5 of his widely read works, The Portrait of a Lady, The Turn of the Screw, The Lesson of the Master, number 169, Washington Square, number 269, and The Short Stories of Henry James, edited by Clifton Fadman, Modern Library Giant G11. So those numbers are, the volume numbers. And and this would be Modern Library number 244. So unfortunately, this dust jacket isn't giving any idea of the plot of this novel, and to be honest, I don't know anything about it apart from the fact that I've heard it's good, so I can't really enlighten you much on the plot here, but I'm quite pleased to have this beautiful edition of The Wings of the Dove so that I can read some Henry James for the first time. Now, in that modern library section, they have a great shelf in the basement of the old modern libraries, and many of them do have the dust jacket. So I also came away with, for $10, The Egoist by George Meredith. And George Meredith is also an author who I've never read, but I found it hard to resist this beautiful dust jacket here with this beautiful cover on it. And once again, the dust jacket isn't in too bad of shape. There is this kind of odd nick on the cover here. I'm not sure what happened there, but the rest of it is in fairly good condition. And copyright 1951 by Random House Incorporated, so I would assume that this edition is indeed from 1951. And it says that The Egoist by George Meredith is the third of the novels to be included in the Modern Library series. They also have Diana of the Crossways and The Ordeal of Richard Feverel. I've never heard of either of those novels. Since its original publication about 70 years ago, it has won for itself more and more champions in each new generation and has become the novel by which George Meredith is best remembered. Mr. Wilson Follett provides a long introduction which throws new light on the life and works of George Meredith. So once again, we don't really hear much about the plot. Actually, instead, the back flap is telling us that many of these famous titles cost from $2 to $10 a piece in their original editions, or were available previously only in expensive sets, and that you can now obtain them in this handy compact volume, beautifully printed and bound in cloth at only a small outlay. And you may have seen, these books appearing in shops without the dust jacket, which is definitely more common to find them that way. And the dust jackets for these modern library editions are really interesting, I think, because you actually get, if you open it up, a list of all the works they have available. If not all, most of the works they have available, which would have been informative to the reader at the time. And it looks as though the dust jacket on the inside flap is clipped here, which is originally where the price would have been, I believe. And I'm not really sure why the price is often clipped on books. If you have, a little bit of history, if you know much about buying books back in the day and why the price would have been clipped, please let me know in the comments, because that remains a mystery to me, and I often wonder how much these books would have originally cost because that price is clipped. I don't know if that's something that would have happened at checkout, or if they did that to prove that the book had been purchased, or if it was something that was done when the book was put on sale, or if a secondhand book dealer at some point would have done that. As I said, it's a mystery to me, but if you know why the price would often be clipped, please let me know in the comments below in this video. So yes, I got The Egoist. And also, if you know anything about the plot of The Wings of the Dove or The Egoist and you've read it, let me know what you thought of these two books. And then I saw this one on the shelf, Sapphira and the Slave Girl by Willa Cather. This is, a beautiful kind of faded green edition, and the front plate and the side plate actually seem to be pasted onto the cloth-bound edition. And I know this is not unique to this particular edition, because I've seen other books published by this publisher, and I'm not even sure what the publisher is off the top of my head. Alfred and Knopf, New York. This is from 1940, and I've got this beautiful front page here. But I've seen other books published by this publisher in a similar edition, where it also has this kind of pasted on paper side and front cover. But yeah, this was $8.99, and I grabbed it because I've read a little bit of Willa Cather in the past, and I wanted to read something more by her. But once again, I don't know what this is about, as there's no cover flap or synopsis. But perhaps I'll just read to you. I'm going to read to you page 112, because that's the end thing to do these days with that tag going along. Oh, maybe I won't read page 112. This is page 112. Let's do a little bit of a reset. I'll read you page 115 instead. One breezy afternoon, Mrs. Blake was footing it round. Mrs. Blake was footing it round. That's an interesting description, an interesting action. I've never heard that phrase before. But anyway, one breezy afternoon, Mrs. Blake was footing it round the last loop of the double S on her way to Timber Ridge. At the end of the steep grade, she sat down on a mossy stump, took off her sunbonnet, and gave herself up to enjoyment of the spring day. In the deep ravine below the road, a crystal stream rushed coffee brown. A crystal stream rushed coffee brown, throwing up crystal rainbows where it gurgled over rock ledges. On the steep hillside across the creek, the tall forest trees were still bare, the oak leaves no bigger than a squirrel's ear. From out the naked grey wood, the dogwood thrust its crooked forks, starred with white blossoms, the flowers set in their own wild way along the rampant zigzag branches. So that doesn't tell me too much about the novel. It does sound interesting, though. I'm wondering who Mrs. Blake is and why she sat down, or rather, stopped along this ravine to admire it. But as I said, I've read some Willa Cather in the past, and I did quite enjoy it. I read My Antona a couple years back. So yeah, if you read this one, of course, let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. Or if you've read the author at all, let me know what you think of her. It's a little bit late. I was watching Netflix, so I am a little bit zoned out, a little bit tired here. But I did want to do this book haul before I settled in to bed for the night. Just because knowing tomorrow I might end up doing something entirely different and forgoing this book haul altogether. And I really did want to do this book haul, in part because I enjoy, talking about the books I bought, and also because I posted a picture on Instagram saying there was a book haul coming. So, you know me, I try to live up to my promises. Then I have this little book here, which an author I'd never heard of, a title I had never heard of. The Tower of London by Harrison Ainsworth, in this cute little vintage hardback edition here. Gold on the spine, which is also a draw for me, and sort of this patterned board here. I'm trying to get it in a good enough light so that you can see. There we go. We've got this sort of wreath going all around here with a pattern, and we've got these little squares in the corner with a pattern. And I'm sure this book would have come with a dust jacket at some point, because it does feel like something that would have had a dust jacket. And then we've got this beautiful cover page in here, and it says it's published by T. Nelson and Sons Limited. Inscribed to the memory of Thomas Ainsworth, Esquire of Beech Hill near Manchester, by his son. And I'm not even sure what this language is. Latin, possibly. Maltese, Il Bonis. I'm not even going to try, but I'll see if I can show you here. Some sort of quote or inscription on that cover page. And we begin in the preface with a quote from Shakespeare's Richard III. And, I'm not sure what this book is about. I think it's a novel, but It is an historical novel. Here on page 139, where I open it up randomly to book 2, we have chapter 1 titled Of the Arrival of Queen Mary in London, of her entrance into the Tower, and her reception of the prisoners on the Green. It has, dialogue like a novel, but some of it reads almost like history, so I would assume that it is a piece of historical fiction. And it looks as though it once belonged to George W. Wilde, because we have the Ex Libris sticker in the front with this beautiful ship on it. This one was $8. And I'm sort of digging here for the publication date, but there doesn't seem to be one, so that indicates that it is a novel of a certain age. It just says the publishing house was established in 1798, and we have novels at IS60net. This is, of course, an English publisher. So I'm assuming this perhaps would be the price here, but I'm not sure exactly what that novels at IS6D means. So if you have knowledge in that area, please let me know what I'm looking at. But there is a list of other novels offered from this publisher, which I think is always interesting. And, I'll read this and see what I've gotten my hands on. And when I do, I will get back to you in one of my Friday reads or something at some point. So I have that, The Tower of London, and there is one final book here that I admit I picked up off the shelf first, purely based on the cover alone. Brace yourself. So this is it. It's quite a beauty. Turn it on in here to give the full effect. It feels like it's leather bound, and it is Sybil by Earl of Beaconsfield KG, volume XIV by the St. Dunstan Binding Company. And it's got this beautiful spine as well, and I'm struggling to show you the full effect in this poor late night light. I really can't do any better here. Just given, the lighting available in my apartment. We have these beautiful end flaps, and the beauty doesn't stop there. We open it up and we get this. What vivid, pink and blues here. Someone went to great lengths to design this book. It says it was printed for subscribers only by M. Walter Dunn, publisher, London and New York. The works of Benjamin Disraeli, Earl of Beaconsfield, embracing novels, romance, plays, poems, biographies, short stories, and great speeches, with a critical introduction by Edmund Gosse, LLD, librarian to the House of Lords, and a biographical preface by Robert Arnott, M.A. So this appears to be part of a larger collection of editions that were printed for a body of subscribers. And I know nothing about Disraeli apart from the fact that he was a very well-known novelist. This is titled Sybil or the Two Nations, and it is volume 1 here. And the paper is quite thick. We've got the deckled edge, copyright 1904, and this was only $10. It was sitting on the first floor of the bookshop out on a table with a lot of new books. So I don't know whether someone pulled this up from the basement and then decided not to buy it, or it's something that had recently come in and they decided to put it out at the front of the shop. But it puzzles me a bit because the price was penciled in the front page, which is something they used to do at the shop. And over the past year or so, they have the little stickers that you've seen on some of the books I've showed. So it would suggest to me that this one was in their shop for quite a while, and somehow it made its way up to the first floor, where I finally noticed it and jumped on it. And it's really quite beautiful, and I can't wait to read it, find out what it's about. And I also have an urge to just bury my nose in it, because it has that beautiful old book scent. And it's not that mold scent that you get sometimes. No, this is just, you know, aged paper and sort of aged leather boards. And I can't believe how beautiful the board of the front of this book is. And I hope that perhaps if I read this and I find out that I like this author, I can be on the lookout and see if I can find myself the rest of the books that will perhaps be in this set. Given that it's volume XIV, I would assume that there are other volumes here. So that wraps up this book haul. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I showed here, and I'm just taking a sip of my tea. And if you've hauled anything beautiful yourself lately. And I hope that you're having a lovely weekend.